Good evening, morning, afternoon, whenever it is when you're watching this, if you're watching this. As always, Gordon Causey coming to you from my little tiny corner of southeastern Ontario, Canada, with, again, as always, Candy the Wonder Pup, who knows that when I do a video, she's going to get a 9 times out of 10. She's been conditioned. She knows what's coming, so she's here. So, okay, she's pawing at me. Shake paw. Lay down. Lay down. There's the speak. Come up. There you go. So Candy is taken care of. That buys me peace, as I always say. Otherwise, she jumps right up on me and sticks her snout right in my face and annoys me until she gets one. I'm a horrible trainer. She knows if she bugs me long enough, I'll give in. Anyway, what's the topic of today's talk? Firstly, thank you for watching. Welcome to my channel. I think that's what people say. And of course, like, shares, and all the rest. Have at it. Talking about the Pride events, the Pride parades taking place, that if you're on social media, Twitter, Facebook, I'm sure it's on Instagram and Parler and Reddit and all the rest too, that there's a good chance you've seen, especially if you're going to watch this, you've seen images, videos of the parades with a lot of nudity and fetishes being displayed. And the message always seems to be from the LGBTQ, etc. community seems to be, we just want to be accepted. We just want to be affirmed like everyone else. And on the one hand, the thought has occurred to me that when in the history of North American society, certainly, was this kind of behavior ever tolerated in a heterosexual context? Never. That would be called indecent exposure. You're not allowed to parade yourself around nude. So the LGBTQ, etc. community, in one respect, I think, they want to normalize something and they want to be accepted like everyone. They want alternative gender identities, alternative sexual lifestyles accepted like others. Well, you've never seen heterosexual displays like this in public in front of children. If anyone, a man or a woman, expose themselves to children or a child, that individual, if identified and their identity confirmed, they would be charged criminally. But now it's right in broad daylight, Main Street, videos being taken. I saw one particular image of a guy who doesn't look all too dissimilar from myself in terms of age, and balding, and he's wearing just a pair of, just in his underwear, I guess SpongeBob SquarePants. It would be his tidy whities, and he's gyrating in front of kids. I think it's disgusting. But you see the kids there, kids don't know what to make of this. It's normalizing it. Hey, yeah, do as you feel. And as regular viewers, all two or three of you, my regular viewers, it's not that, it's probably a few more than that, but it's not a huge following. No, I'm a Christian. And there's a passage in Scripture where Jesus talks about hypocrisy and how We love to look at the log in someone else's, or rather, look at the speck in someone else's eye and ignore the log in our own eyes. And I ask myself, how did we get to this point in history where this kind of decadence is normal? And I'm in an earlier video, decadence. Now, decadence is thought to be a great and wonderful thing, but if you look up the meaning of the word, decadence, by definition, means moral and cultural decay. So when did we all of a sudden start celebrating decay? Well, this is where I think we need to look at the log in our own eyes. Those of us, and I'm certainly one, I'm not a fan of these pride parades. Big surprise, I was not in attendance at any. My little tiny town of 11, 12,000 people, 12, 13 actually, somewhere around 12, 13,000 people, small town, Eastern Ontario. There were certainly no pride events here of which I was aware. I went to church this morning. I was at worship, and much rather be at a worship service than, there's no way you're getting me to go to a pride event. So I have a bias, and I'm stating it up front. But at the same time, I've got to look at that log in my own eye. And I think a lot of us who are criticizing the pride events, we're somewhat complicit in how things have gotten as bad as they have gotten. And I can only reference my own time. I was born in 1966, so born in the late 60s, started to become a sentient, aware human being, right around 1970 or so. That's when my first memories start, late, in 69, 70, going forward. Of course, back then, they're memories of a child. But regardless, if you go back even a little bit further, go back into the 50s and 60s, and if you look at the popular culture mediums like television and the manner in which the broader culture treated sex, it was not something that was on public display. TV shows, if you watch old reruns of I Love Lucy, you'll note that Lucy and Ricky, if they showed an image of their bedroom, they had twin beds, separate beds. And as I understand it, I've read that in that era, there was a accepted practice that if they were filming a scene in which there were two people in the bedroom, a man and a woman, that both had to, if they sat down on the bed, at least 1 foot had to remain on the floor. And this was the kind of, and some look upon and go, well, it's a little prudish. That's a little, over the top. They certainly, you never had any mention of sexual activity was ever in these old shows, Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, My Little Margie, these old early popular shows. I Love Lucy again. It wasn't until a TV show called The Dick Van Dyke Show, I believe that was the first TV show. It starred Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore. Theirs was the first bedroom that had a double bed in it. And then time went on, and I believe the first time a gay character was introduced on television was in the early 70s in the Mary Tyler Moore Show, when she got her own TV show. It was very benign, nothing like you would see nowadays, where a character was on for one episode, the brother of one of Mary's neighbors in the building she lived in, and the brother was gay, and you found out not until the end of the show. I don't want to go into it in too much detail, but Rhoda has been seeing this gentleman, and they get along famously. And Phyllis is somewhat aghast that Rhoda doesn't seem to be romantically interested in her brother. And she's taken back and says, he's smart, he's educated, he has a great job. Why wouldn't you like this guy? He's got everything. And Rhoda goes, and he's gay. And that was basically the end of it. But then things progressed. Later on, you had Billy Crystal's character on a TV show called a primetime comedy sitcom satire called Soap. And I believe that his character was the first regular, recurring character in a syndicated show, Soap, with a gay character. Then it wasn't long before we had Ellen and Will and Grace, and then Roseanne. The Roseanne show introduced homosexual characters, and now it's, now there's networks on TV. Sex went from being not talked about, but the thing is, before all that opened up, the heterosexual side, which hadn't been played up, was thrust into the storylines. If you watch a very popular, one of the most popular sitcoms of all time, kind of a dramatic situation comedy, MASH, about the Korean War, Alan Alda and others. And in that show, marital infidelity was pretty much treated as normal, de rigueur. Fast forward, into the 90s, and you had the show Cheers, where the main character was what in bygone days would have been referred to as a womanizer, Sam Malone. And again, marital infidelity was treated as nothing to see here, happens all the time. And I'm not giving you an exhaustive overview of the progression, but we can go into early 2000s, and the show Two and a Half Men came out, and you had it was The Odd Couple revisited for the year 2000. The uptight Alan and his brother, the loosey-goosey Charlie. And Charlie lives the life that, everyone is, he's presented as the heroics figure, as the protagonist. And Alan, the somewhat straight-laced one, is the buffoon, the fool, the moron, the ass. And just normalized it. And this is the log I see in my own eye. As I watched those shows, and I applauded those shows. I was watching Two and a Half Men when it was coming on the air live every week, and I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was hilarious. I thought the acting was incredible and the writing, outstanding. Wouldn't miss an episode. Wouldn't quite go that far, but I enjoyed that show. And that this is the slippery slope that we have been on. And so if we're going to criticize the LGBTQT, XML, et cetera, that big long acronym that has no end. If we're going to criticize that, I think we need to criticize ourselves, because we've been on this slippery slope, and this is just a natural progression of it. And I honestly, I would leave it open to anyone who wants to leave a comment as to what you think can be done about it. I don't know. It's Pandora's box. Try and close Pandora's box. It's not going to be easy. When it comes to biblical teaching, during this time when we were just getting onto this slippery slope, when things like divorce started to be normalized. There was a show called One Day at a Time with I can't remember the actress's name, Bonnie Franklin, I think it was, Valerie Bertinelli, and Mackenzie Phillips. Those were the principal three characters. First time, I believe, in TV history where a mainstream primetime show basically, divorce is nothing unusual, normalized it. And there's two ways things are framed. Some say that art imitates life. Some say that life imitates art. I tend to see an element of both in play, because divorce certainly was around before that TV show came around. But at the same time, I think that show also, because it normalized it, well, I think it likely, not just that show, but it bespoke the broader culture and the acceptance we had toward, oh, well, the marriage ended. No big deal. The kids will adjust. And, I don't want to go off on too many tangents, but I think, there's a tendency, where does the pendulum stop? It seems to, the pendulum goes from one extreme to the other. And things have got to get really bad before the pendulum starts moving the other way. And as it's coming back, it goes right past that, reasonable midpoint and just keeps going to the other extreme. I mean, divorce used to be incredibly difficult to obtain. And there were cases where typically women were being abused, but because of societal pressure and because of the difficulty in obtaining a divorce, they stayed in marriages that should have ended. But at the same time now, I think it's the flip side, where the marriage shouldn't end, but because we've made it so easy that and so accepted, so de rigueur, that and the damage it does to our kids. We're such a hedonistic culture, live for today, there may be no tomorrow. And we're tearing away the foundation of our world, of our society, of our culture. Bit by bit by bit, it's crumbling. And again, I don't know, the way the pendulum is swinging. I don't know how much further it's got to go before it hits that extreme point and starts swinging back the other way. Could we stop at that healthy point? I don't know. The way this world is going, the way authoritarian control is taking over. We're living in an age of bread and circuses, to quote an old Roman poet by the name of, I think it was Juvian. Keep the people fed, keep them entertained, and you can manipulate and control them as in any way you need to. Just keep them fed, keep them entertained, give them a pride parade, let guys dance down the street naked. Who cares? Let them display themselves in front of kids. What the heck? I mean, we've been on this road. No one complained, when it was Charlie Harper was scantily, a parade of scantily clad young girls going into his bed. Isn't that funny? Oh man, I wish I was like Charlie. And let's be honest, a lot of guys saw that. Same with Sam Malone. Same with Alan Alda's role of Hawkeye on MASH. And the thing is, when we started down this slippery slope, I was getting on to, where was Christian leadership? Who were the faces of Christianity in the 70s and the 80s? We had Jim Bakker and his PTL club. And PTL was supposed to stand for, I believe, Praise the Lord, but jokingly it became known as Pay the Lady or Pass the Loot, because Jim Bakker was caught in an extramarital affair with Jessica Hahn. Eventually, Jim Bakker went to jail over his financial crimes, and Jessica Hahn graced the pages of Playboy. And another, prominent face, if you will, of the Christian faith was Jimmy Swaggart, and he was caught having been involved with a prostitute, I believe. He had Ernest Ainsley. I don't know how to remember exactly how you said his name, a guy with a really bad toupee who, "You're healed." And those were the faces of the Christian faith, and gave the Christian faith a black eye. I often wonder if that was by design. Satan is at work in churches as well. It's not a pleasant reality, but it's a reality. And there are wolves in sheep's clothing all over the place. So, as Christians, if we're going to complain about what we see at a pride parade, I think we likewise have to complain about the log in our own eyes and how we basically sat silent when heterosexual depravity was celebrated. This isn't unprecedented in world history. You can look back to the Roman Empire. I can't pronounce the name. Caligula, I think is the way you pronounce it. Famous name for sexual immorality. Sodom and Gomorrah. Some people think that's mythology. Some people think it's historical. I believe it's historical, but even if it's not, even as an allegorical, moralistic tale, it has power. It has meaning. But anyway, that's the end of my video. Comments are welcome. Subscriptions are welcome. You can share this out if you want. I don't think it was a particularly great video. I don't have any answers. The only answer I'll ever have is Jesus Christ. And to get into a relationship with him, get to know God through his son, Jesus Christ. And the best way to do that is through the Bible. And it helps to find a biblically sound church, which is challenging. It can be challenging because churches are human institutions, and any human institution is flawed and imperfect. So it's a struggle, but it's a worthwhile struggle. So I'll leave you there. Keep it under 30 minutes. Short little video for me. Anyway, good night. God bless. Thanks for watching.